Hello and welcome to Salford Now. I'm Beth Hemmings.
And I'm Emma Davidson. On today's programme,
We have the latest on the murder trial of Paul Massey and John Kinsella.
we explore an inquiry into racial abuse across universities in the UK.
And GPs across Salford are working towards making their surgeries more inclusive for the LGBTQ communities.
The murder trial of Paul Massey and John Kinsella continues today at Liverpool Crown Court. Earlier, we spoke to Grace Maley, who's been following the trial.
This morning, the court heard from Darren Greener, a cell site analysis expert who also gave evidence yesterday. Now, Mr Greener was able to confirm that Mark Fellows' phone and his car took a journey down the M60, down the M61 and down Manchester Road where Paul Massey was shot just the day before his murder. The second witness we heard from today, Mr Tunnicliffe, lived on the same road where Paul Massey was shot. Now, an acquaintance of Paul Massey knocked on the door of Mr Tunnicliffe and asked to be taken to Paul Massey's address as he believed he had been shot. Now, Mr Tunnicliffe rang an ambulance and waited until emergency services arrived. Finally, we hear from DC Simon Howe, who read out the transcript that Boyle gave in the interview after he was arrested. Now, Boyle states he had no part in Massey's murder. He also denies acting as a lookout in the case. Just a month before the murder, Fellows was Boyle's top caller in his phone. Now, that leaves the jury to decide whether these calls have any inkling or hint as to what has happened just days before and months before the murder.
Thank you for that, Grace. The trial still continues. Both men have denied the charges. Following several racist incidents across universities in the UK, an inquiry has been launched by the Equality and Human Rights Commission. There has been growing evidence of staff and students facing racial abuse. Our reporter Anza Ahmed went and spoke to Victoria Owen, the Innovation Manager at the University of Salford.
Ask us, we really do take pride in being an open and inclusive service to all students, and it's a shame to hear that some students don't know that they can come to us if they've experienced racial harassment or a hate crime. That definitely indicates to me that there's probably more that we can do to get our contact details out there and to get some communications out there that reassure students.
Some breaking news now. Greater Manchester Police have arrested a third man after a shooting in Salford last month. Officers say a 46-year-old man was arrested on possession of a firearm after attending a police station. He's since been released on bail. It follows the shooting of a man in his 20s at a music event at Kingston Mill in November. GPs in Salford are working towards making their practices more inclusive for the LGBTQ community. Our reporter Josh Smith has more.
I'm here at the Height General Practice in Salford, where they're looking at how they can improve their healthcare for people of LGBT status. The surgery recently achieved the bronze status in the Pride and Practice Award, and I spoke to Holly Walsh, the assistant manager here, on why inclusivity is so important.
We started with things just as simple as our registration forms, like basic things on our registration forms, asking people, are they gay, are they straight, are they male, are they female. We just changed our registration forms as a first point of call, make sure we were including things like non-binary on there, asking people whether they were male, including trans male, female, including trans female. Just little changes like that that we implemented. We have notice boards displayed in the waiting area that has got advice, local places that the LGBT community can go to, upcoming events, things like that that we just keep updated regularly.
The LGBT organisation Stonewall found half of gay and bisexual men have experienced at least one incident of domestic abuse from a family member or partner. 1/5 of lesbian and bisexual women have deliberately harmed themselves in the last year. Half of lesbian and bisexual women are not honest about their sexuality to their GP. 3% of gay and bisexual men have attempted to take their life in the last year. A quarter of gay and bisexual men have never been tested for sexually transmitted infections, and 41% of lesbian, gay and bisexual people over the age of 55 live alone, compared to 28% of heterosexual people. The University of Salford's LGBT officer Joe Wilmot told us why it's important that GPs take this positive step in the right direction.
Absolutely, I think the fact that GPs in Salford are striving for such awards is fantastic, and especially because Manchester it's got a massive LGBT base of people. But putting that aside, I think all GPs, not just in Salford, but across the entirety of the UK, should be striving for such awards. But it's great that people in Salford are.
And next, the Little Walden Moss Nature Reserve in Salford has been targeted by arsonists for the second time. The Lancashire Wildlife Trust have said that a tunnel which is used to grow vital plants has been destroyed.
Charlie Hitchens went down to the reserve.
Yes, I'm here at Little Walden Moss, where this week it's been a target of another act of vandalism. As you can see behind me, there's lots of bags of rubbish that have been collected because of the damage that has gone on. We have a statement from Alan Wright, who is the campaigns manager for the Wildlife Trust that own the reserve, and he says that this week's theft and vandalism is heartbreaking because the polytunnel has been a feature of the reserve since they bought it more than 5 years ago. So this isn't the only act of vandalism that they've seen here. Previously they've had thefts of sculptures and even an arson attack on a bird hide. With it being so out of the way, it's hard for the police and the Wildlife Trust to keep an eye on it, and the cost and trouble of replacing something like this, Alan told us, is that it adds to our difficulties as a conservation charity.
Manchester's National Football Museum have announced they will start charging for entry, but Mancunians will go free. This means residents of Salford will no longer have free access to the football fun. This follows the council reducing its funding by £200,000.
Now, Jack's here with the sport. So, Jack, what do you think about those new ticket prices?
Well, Beth, I must say that after my antiques at the last year's Journalism Awards, I don't think I'll be allowed back in the Football Museum, but I can imagine telling my grandkids that I remember back in my day when it was free to get in the Football Museum. But that's not the only controversial topic happening around Salford today, as a Salford Uni student has proposed a women and non-binary only swimming session. Deborah McCundy went to speak to the student proposing the idea.
With many gym and swimming centres across the country allocating slots in their timetable for women-only sessions, Salford University student Hattie Rudick decided to propose the idea at the Student Union for University Sports Centre.
It's just more about comfortability. As somebody that's never had the best relationship with my body and with exercise, it is just about making that environment easier to access. So it's not saying that this should be it all the time, it's just more that for 1 hour a week it makes it easier to get into it and to be feeling comfortable to exercise.
However, following the big idea, Hattie received a message from someone condemning the proposal, claiming it will not help bring equality.
This is not saying that men should not have their own space as well. It's just one, I could never give that argument justice because I'm not a man and I can't identify with the struggles that men would face and why they need their own environment. That is something for somebody that identifies as a man to relate to more, because I couldn't do that argument well.
Front house manager at the Sports Centre, Dale O'Neill, believes implementing the aim could be positive.
Really in favour of it. In terms of what we do, we're always looking to break down barriers for all areas of our community, especially women and especially non-binary people. We've actually run some women only and some trans-inclusive sessions.
Deborah McCundy, Salford Now.
Well, there are some points made in that package that me, as a man, would completely go over my head. But what do the people of Salford think? Well, we put a poll on Twitter saying, do you agree with us? Give us your thoughts below. And 60% voted yes, 28% voted no, and 12% were unsure. So the overwhelming majority voting yes. And now, academics from the University of Salford helped to create a new book that launched in Media City last night. The Routledge Handbook of Football Business and Management features 2 contributors from Salford Uni, including Professor Simon Chadwick, who nominated Ferran Soriano for his honorary degree yesterday, if you remember. The handbook is now available to be bought and can be found online. Some huge news just in from Swinton as they unveiled their new kit for the upcoming season. The kits pay tribute to the past colours with a combination of both royal and navy blue. We would have had pictures for you, but Joe Doherty, who is a broadcaster, did not take any videos. You can't get the staff these days, guys. Sticking with rugby league now, as former Arsenal defender Tommy Adams is set to replace Andy Burnham as the Rugby Football League president. Burnham, the mayor of Greater Manchester, will be replaced by 52-year-old Adams in the summer of 2019. Adams has worked alongside the RFL with his charity Sporting Chance since 2011 to assist with players' mental health. Do you agree with the former footballer star being appointed as the new president of the RFL? Let us know on Twitter @Salford Now. And finally, the 6th annual Salford Saxon Celebrity Football Match is set to take place next year. They are set to play against the Once Upon a Smile charity in a bid to raise money. Last year, they managed to raise over £5,000. This year, celebrities such as Love Island's Dom Lever and Emmerdale star Daniel Gillings will be appearing. May the 25th, save the date, folks. Some big names there. Shall we have a date night next year, Emma and Beth?
Sounds brilliant, Jack.
Absolutely. Totally up for that, Jack. Thanks for that. Mission Christmas has revealed to Salford Now that requests for gifts have more than doubled in 2 years. The charity provides gifts to disabled children and children in poverty and has had 68,000 requests this year.
I have been involved with Mission Christmas since I was about 12 years old. I think the thing that gets me about it every year is that it can be anybody that it happens to. You know, there's a lot of underprivileged children in Manchester, and I don't think people realise that. And it could be your next door neighbour, it could be a child in your child's class. It is very, very close to home.
Christmas should be the most magical time, and for so many families it's the saddest time of year. Sadly, almost 1 in 3 children in Greater Manchester are living in poverty. That means they're going to bed without a hot meal, they're living in a house with no central heating, and they don't have a sufficient school uniform. For these families, Christmas is simply a luxury that they just can't afford. In Salford last year we helped over 4,200 children that may otherwise have gone without, and overall we helped over 60,000 children in the Greater Manchester area.
We're going to be going to big centres that are going to be then handing them out to the families. So we could be doing 50 or 60 children at each centre that we go to. So we're going to hope to get a massive, massive impact. It'd be a massive, massive help to Mission Christmas.
Nobody deserves to wake up on Christmas without a present. It always daunts me about how many people don't buy for teenagers. They only really buy for kids or for babies. And I thought, no, these are perfect for teenagers. The teenage girls are going to love them. So that's exactly why I'm here.
Manchester, Salford, this area never ceases to amaze me with how generous the donations are. One of our beneficiaries organisations came into the warehouse today, and in January one of her children that she works with said to her, "I must have been a really naughty boy last year because Santa didn't visit me." And for me that breaks my heart, because that's what kids are told, that they only don't get presents if they're naughty and they're on the naughty list, when actually you know, it's so expensive, and some families, you know, lots of different reasons, sickness, disability, young carers. There's so many reasons why people need an extra helping hand, and I can't bear the thought of young children thinking that they have been naughty and that's why they didn't get any gifts from Santa. So I just want everybody to donate so that little boy gets a Christmas present this year.
Okay.
It's now over to Thomas for the weather. So what's it looking like for the rest of the week, Tom?
Thanks, Beth. I'm standing in front of Old Trafford and I'll be honest, I'm completely freezing. It's very, very cold, and it's going to get even colder tonight. So if you're going to see any sort of meteor shower, I know there's one that's supposed to be in the sky, it should be lovely. I would wrap up really, really warm, and I would for the next few days, because it's to snow, and you know what that means. I would get the sleds out, I would get everything out. It's to be very, very cold. Thanks, Beth. Thanks, Emma.
Well, if there's snow expected, I am definitely getting my sledge out.
Absolutely.
But that's all from us here at Salford Now. I hope you have a lovely evening. See you soon.
Goodbye.